here. Good morning. It's the portion. We're here already. Misty, you want to say hi real quick?
Hi, ladies. How are y'all today?
Oh, that's
Glad
great.
you're all here. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to make you co-host here.
Okay.
I'm having a moment.
It's all right.
All right. Oh, great. Tiffany, come on in, Tiffany. Okay. Now let me make you the co-host. All right. Do you want to make? Yes, I do. Okay. Misty, you're the co-host today. Hello, everyone. Tiff, it's so good to see you. Ishka, welcome, sis. So glad you're here. And Alicia, hi. I'm Brenda. This is Misty, whichever way she is on this.
Hello.
Hello. All right, fantastic. What a great portion we are having today. Misty and I were just chatting about this, and we were just saying that, I mean, come on. Like I'm one of those people, I want to always look on the sunny side. I always want to look on the bright side, but man, this portion just really got me. And it's a wonderful portion, isn't it, Misty? It's a wonderful portion.
It's full.
It's full. It's really, really full. I want to just kind of dive right in because this is the thing. This portion is putting a mirror up in front of our faces, and this portion is really going to cause us to take a look really deep within ourselves. Let me just start off by saying welcome to the portion. The portion is part of the Rooted Cafe. This is the part where we have our weekly Bible study that we have to everybody, any women that are wanting to join in or welcome to join into this Bible study. It's one of our blessings that we're able to do, and I just wanted to welcome everyone, all of our new people today. Appreciate it. Those of you that are listening by podcast, hello, it's the portion. It's Brenda here, and Misty is my co-host today, Misty Harbor. Welcome, Misty. And for those of you that are on Facebook, welcome. Please leave your comments. I won't be able to go back and forth to chit chat with you live, but please leave your comments and chat amongst yourself. And then jump on at the end, jump onto Zoom at the very end, and we'll have a little after party here after we're done with our portion study, okay? So today, for those of you listening by podcast today, Genesis 32, verse 4 through 36, verse 43. That's our Torah portion. The book of Obadiah is our half Torah, and Matthew 2, verse 13 through 23. That's our Brit Hadashah, our New Testament scripture. And so Misty, don't you just love how when the week starts, whether you have snuck a peek into what's coming up or not, it starts happening.
Right?
It's like it happens whether we realize it or not. This is what's going to be happening this week, right?
Yes. And then we have to deal with it.
And then and then we're like, well, thank you, Father. I guess I should pay better attention so I can get prepped with what's coming up our way. Yeah, this is a good, this parsha is called Vayishlach, and it is he sent. It's the scripture that talks about he sent, and it's talking about Jacob sending out messengers. Some say it's angels, some say it's people. We're not told specifically if it's one or the other, but the word is used for both angels and for messengers. And he sends them out ahead to his brother Esau because there is a hope for him that there will be no death today. that no one would die today. And so he's he's in the process of this reconciliation or this meetup that has been, brewing for what, 34 years now, because it was 34 years since he's left home. He left and spent 14 years in the tents with Eber and Shem, and then from there he went on to Laban and he spent 20 years there. So it's been 34 years that this has been coming. And now all of a sudden there's this culmination of this meetup again. And it's really interesting that this is the time and season every year that we read this portion. And this is a time and season when a lot of us are getting together with family members that maybe we have had issues with, right, Misty?
Oh, that doesn't happen to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. I hear that from other people.
Yeah. Right. It's those people that happens to.
Yeah, right.
Well,
right.
I think there's so much that happens. And some of the biggest conflicts that we have right now are the things regarding celebrating and not celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically, if you're going to do it and you're going to face your family, you just need to own it. You need to own that decision and march on.
Yeah.
And it's not the easiest thing to do always, but if you want to do it, that's the way it's got to be done.
Right. Right. Like, I love what you just said, owning it, because guess what? That's what we have to do. We have to own our stuff. And I think that's why this Torah portion for me created a lot of introspection, more so than the Torah portions leading up to this. And I don't know, give me a hand up or let me know, put a comment, put something in the comment if it did that to you too. Because in all reality, each one of us are walking this out in our lives, and we are Jacob wrestling within ourselves, because what the Holy One wants for us is to move into the Israel, to not just remain as a Jacob, one who is going to take care of things, not that it's bad or anything, but he takes care of things from a perspective that may not be so kingdom forward minded, right?
Right. And at this point, he's basically been doing this his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
He's been struggling with something in this realm his entire life.
Yeah, he sure has. And now he's being confronted with the fact that he has to meet his brother, and something's going to happen. It's going to get worked out one way or the other, right? It's going to get worked out one way or the other. But today we hope there's no death. That's what, that's kind of like wake up in the morning, like, okay, so let's not die. So he puts a lot of effort into that. So right now, the first thing he's doing in Genesis, in our Vayishlach, the very first thing he's doing is sending out emissaries, messengers, to lay a groundwork. He has a strategy. He's been given a strategy, and he is laying forth that groundwork. And he is looking ahead at, how do I appease my brother? How do I make things happen so that my brother will be appeased, will not kill me? And that's kind of the strategy that he's doing. And can I just say that this time, darn, I wasn't going to cry. I kept telling myself today, I'm not going to cry. It's silly. Don't cry. No. The choices that he has to make, the choices that he makes in prepping to meet Esau, the choices that he makes are traumatic choices. And did you all get that? I mean, can you imagine lining up your kids in order of who would get killed first if they got attacked? That's just not something anyone should have to ever do. He sent all of these things out first. He sent them all out first. All the wealth of the nations, and you realize that what I was telling Misty this earlier, we both heard this from a rabbi. He was talking. He said the gifts that Jacob gave to his brother Esau was equivalent to like giving him the stock to Apple. It was a future of absolute prosperity that he gave him, because he gave him the this amazing amount of animals was that he gave them male and female. He gave, like, the camels were either had calves or were pregnant with calves. I mean, we're talking, this is going to set Esau up for generations of wealth. That's what he was doing in droves and in droves and in droves and in droves, one after the other after the other. And he had him so strategically set so that as soon as the animals started coming forward, in the background, you're seeing the next drove being released. So it looked like it was, I can only imagine that it would have looked like it was uh, unending. You know what I mean? Did you get that, Misty, when you were reading that?
Yes, but I just think there's so many things that we don't have, that we can't grasp the concept, like
Mhm,
time for them. You know, you said
mhm.
34 years and we think, "Oh, that sounds forever." But when you're living 700 years or 900 years, that's
Yeah,
nothing.
or
It's a drop in the
120
bucket
or 180.
comparatively,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so to imagine this huge flock of
Mm,
things, just
mhm.
animals after animals after animals, I think is unless you've worked somewhere, which I can't even imagine where that might be, and the way they traveled, I mean,
Yeah.
my goodness, there's just so many things conceptually that I think we have a really difficult time understanding.
Yes, absolutely. So he is sending forth all of this wealth. And what is that doing? How is that setting the stage for Esau? Because he hasn't gone to Esau yet, but he sent his emissaries, he sent his messengers to tell them specifically a very, very specific dialogue that would speak to the heart of Esau. And announcing that Jacob was coming as a servant, not as the birthright owner, not as the one who has the financial blessing of the family. Not that. That's not how he came to his brother. He put all of that down and he came to his brother as if Esau was the one with the birthright and that he was the one with the blessing. That's how he came to him. Isn't that interesting that he did that? I'm like, wow, this is some strategies from heaven here. I'll tell you what. So here we go. And then in verse 8, it says in chapter 32, it says, Jacob became very frightened and it distressed him. Why? Because the emissaries came back and said, Esau's coming to meet you. He's on his way with 400 soldiers. So Jacob's not even really sure how this is going to play out, but he knows that the message has been sent and he knows that he's doing everything that he can. And then he begins crying out to God, which is such a great example of what we need to do when we are absolutely incapable of figuring out what is happening. Hold on just a moment. I'm getting a message here. Let's see. I apologize. Let's look and see.
And it's so
Oh,
beautiful.
gee, Misty, go ahead and talk. I did the recording. I mean, I did the live on the Rooted Cafe. So
Oh, shoot.
let me let me put this record. If you want to just chat for a moment and let me
Okay.
record on here, okay?
One of the things that stuck out to me whenever
Mhm.
I was reading this prayer was that he mentions the loving kindness he mentions that hesed as he is pleading with the father to just take care of him, protect his family, protect his children. And I don't know why in particular that stuck out, because he said, I do not deserve the least of all the loving commitment and all the truth which you have shown your servant.
Oh,
He just humbled
wow.
himself even before he was humbling himself in front of his brother. He humbled himself before the father and said, I don't even deserve the least little bit of all that you've already done. And here I am asking you to do more.
Mm.
Yet he still did it with confidence.
Yes, he did. Oh, that's so good. So share some more with us about that.
Well, it was just his confidence in the father and who the father is,
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many times that we get down in the dumps and we are like, oh, woe is me and poor, pitiful. Oh, I'm fixing to face my brother and I might die.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's like, look, Father, I know I don't deserve what you've given me already,
Yeah.
but I'm asking you for more and I thank you for it. You know, it's
Isn't that
just that
beautiful?
confidence in who he is. It's
Yeah.
in who he is. It has nothing to do with who Jacob was. Jacob
Right.
was Israel, but it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with who the father is.
Yes. I love that. That's beautiful. Let's read this prayer. Let's read this prayer. Um, okay, so in verse 8, it says, Jacob became very frightened and it distressed him. So he divided up the people with him and the flocks and the cattle and the camels into two camps. And he said, he's thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and strikes it down, then the remaining camp will survive. So it's a strategy that it's a human strategy that he's coming up with. He's trying to be wise. He's in a situation that he doesn't know how to deal with, and he's being wise, right? So, and then he says, even more wisdom. He goes to the father and he says, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Hashem, who said to me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I will do good with you. I have been diminished. I love this, Misty. This is what you were saying. I have been diminished by all the kindnesses and by all the truth that you have done, your servant. For with my staff I crossed this Jordan. Yeah, with only his staff. That was all he had, was his staff. And now I have become two camps. Rescue me. I love that. Rescue me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him lest he come and strike me down, mother and children. And you had said, I will surely do good with you, and I will make your offspring like the sand of the sea, which is too numerous to count. And this prayer that he prayed. He was praying and asking Abba to rescue him. And he's reminding Abba, not that he's forgotten, but Jacob needs to be reminded. And he's saying, you promised that you would make our children like the sand of the sea, like the sand at the beach, like the stars of the sky. This is the promise from Abraham and promise from Isaac, and it's coming through Jacob. So he's praying this, and then he leaves it in his hands, and then he spends the night there. And then he took from that which had come in his hand a tribute to his brother Esau. And then he goes into all of the animals, and they're all very significant. We don't have time today to get into all of it, but how fun. This is such a fun thing to dig into. Like, what's the significance of all these numbers and all of these combinations? It's very, very significant. Some of the rabbis have some of the most interesting stories about this. So anyway, he goes into all of this and he's asking, he says, when Esau asks, whose are you? I love that. Whose are you? Where are you going? And whose are these that are coming before you? Say to him, your servant Jacob's. It is a tribute sent to my Lord, to Esau. And behold, he himself is behind us. So he's saying that I'm coming and I'm bringing all of this. I'm your servant. You're my Lord. So he's really giving tribute and honor to his brother. as the firstborn. I mean, he's actually, right, Misty? He's actually putting him into the place that was stolen 34 years
Years ago.
earlier.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So he was having to come to terms with a lot of things. Like, Father, I know, he prayed, he said, Father, I know that you said that you would make my seed great. You said that. But what have I done that has prevented that? Basically, what's been my participation? And this is him teshuva. This is him repenting. This is him saying, I want to set this right. But he can't quite get there yet. He can't quite get there yet. Right now, right now, he is encased in fear. And that's not how this is going to be reconciled. So
It's funny you said that. I actually marked that in my Bible, where when he divided his family, how that was a fear response. And you were talking about that, the trauma
the
behind that. I
Trump,
can't.
can
Oh,
you imagine? I mean,
no.
not only for that really stuck with me for a while. The trauma of having to say, you're going to go first, you're going to go second, you're going to go third. And I mean, let's think about it. The trauma that the kids endured, that they were put out there.
They
And
had to have felt his fear
they
as
had to
well.
have, they had to have. And so this is all being done, but it's Jacob it's Jacob right now that's dealing with this, and he's dealing with fear. He's being overwhelmed with fear, right? So let's just move along and see let's just move along here and see what happens here. So he got up that night and he took his wives and his handmaidens and his 11 sons, and he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And when he took them and had them cross over the stream, he sent over the possessions. So the possessions went first. Jacob was left alone. He sent the possessions, and then he sent his family. And Jacob was left alone, and a man, this is in the English, it says, and a man. In Hebrew, it says ish. Did you guys catch that? In Hebrew, it says ish. And a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. And I had written a little note. Let's look and see. Verse 25, I'm trying to look over here in the Hebrew here. Yeah. So if you look in the, I'll put this up here. If you look here, that's what it says. So it says it was a man. Now, Ish, we all know this. I'll just remind you, the Ish is made up of the Aleph, the Yod, and the Sheen. And the Aleph represents the Holy One, the beginning of everything, Echad, the one. Yod represents the divine hand, the creative power of the Holy One, the potter, the creative power, the craftsman. And Sheen represents the flames of fire, the descending flames of fire, the divine presence made manifest. So here we have a physical manifestation in the man of the divine presence of God. And this is what hit me for the first time reading this Torah portion. Simi put this thought in my head a few days ago. She said, I just heard that what if that man that he was wrestling with, the angel that he was wrestling with, or the man, was actually himself? And I'm like, wow, that's an interesting way to look at it. Thoughtful. This time reading through this, a physical manifestation of the divine presence. This is Ish. This is who Jacob was wrestling with. Can you imagine that he was wrestling with that part of himself too, like we do, wrestling with that part of himself? What was one of the greatest blessings of Yaakov as a father, as a patriarch that he left with us? That he wrestled until he received the blessing every time. He didn't let go. He didn't quit. He grabbed hold of. He was a heel grabber. He grabbed hold of and he held on to. He didn't let it go. And so as he is wrestling with this man or this angel, whatever, we don't know. It's kind of, I know nothing. When he's wrestling with him, the word for wrestle is abak. I looked that up, and it means to kick up dust, to grapple, to grasp. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing with the Torah? Is grabbing a hold of it and grappling with it? Yeah, we're not going to understand it. We're not going to get it. It's going to kick our behind. It's going to make us limp. But we grab a hold of it and we wrestle with it. And Jacob is the one who is like going forward and showing us these things. Like he's grabbing hold of this man or this angel who's standing there wrestling with him, and he is not letting go. And he's saying, I'm not going to let you go. And the man or the angel says, hey, it's dawn. I got to go. That kind of did that tickle you guys when you read that? Did it tickle you? It's dawn. I got to go. Well, if it was a man, right? But if it was an angel, angels are supposed to worship the Holy One at dawn. And so if it was an angel, he had a place to be. He had some place to go. He was on his schedule. Hey, let go of me, buddy. Let go. We're done. We're done wrestling. Let go of me. I got things to do. So that just was, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. This is just what I'm thinking. So Misty, unmute yourself and pop in there. So, so in this wrestling, Yaakov dies.
He becomes
and
something
Israel,
completely different.
yeah, Israel is born.
Yes.
And so guess who it was that approached his brother and had reconciliation?
It was Israel.
It was Israel.
Yes.
Because the man Jacob wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right.
But when he's touched and when he is brought face to face and when he is
he's walking in the
restored,
manifestation of the
yes.
promise.
What happens when we get into the presence of God, Misty? What happens when we get into the presence of God?
It's the only
what
thing that
happens?
Changes anything. We
right?
are changed. Yes.
Right.
Oh,
I love this. So I'm going to look at some of the comments here because I know that you ladies are so, this has just been such a blessing to. So Kathy says, I've been chewing on what we learned in Halissa's class, that Esau had honored the mother bird, where you wouldn't kill the children while they were with the mother. So each group had wife and children. Esau didn't carry out his plan to harm Jacob until after his mother died. That's very true. It made sense about his dividing his group the way that he did. Something for me to think about. Kathy, thank you for bringing that up. I love that. So there was a strategy going on with how he set everybody up. I mean, I can't, these are not the things that we should ever have to deal with. It's like in war, there's so many things that happen that we should never have to ever deal with. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Misty, you're going to talk about Dina. There are some things in life that we should never have to deal with. Some tragedies that should never occur or we should never be faced with. But sometimes those things happen, and this is how he is sharing with us how to walk them out. And so Tiffany said, we do not all struggle between who we currently are. Do we not all struggle between who we currently are and who we were created to be? Yes, Tiffany. Yes. And that is this beautiful story that we are being, I almost said dumped in the middle of. Sorry. But, come on. I mean,
It is.
it's the time and season here.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the story that's happening, and we are right in the middle of it. And every single one of us, I guess that's why my heart this week has been really tender. And I don't mean that I'm not saying that in a boastful way. I'm saying that in that I feel like I've been wrestling. I feel like I'm kind of beat up here. I feel like I've been grappling with some things and having to come to grips with uh, family issues that are not family issues that are difficult and that are not everybody else's fault. Family
Right.
issues that I am looking at with new eyes after reading this Torah portion, like, Father, what was my participation in this? And help me to not look at this like it's everybody else's fault, but what was my part and what was my responsibility? And how do you strategically want me to bring life? How do you want to further the kingdom in my walk with my family?
Isn't it a constant battle to tame the flesh? I mean, we have to tame our flesh, and it's a constant decision by decision thing that we have to do. And then, like you said, there's always those consequences and those things that we're like, I wish I would have done whatever differently.
Right.
But the problem is we can't go back and change it. It happened. We can't go back and
Right.
change it now. We just have
Right.
to move forward with dealing with whatever that consequence or that repercussion
Right.
is.
Right. You know, uh, years ago, I heard a preacher talking about taking courageous moral inventory, and I think it might have come from. I mean, honestly, it might have come from one of the 12-step programs. I'm not sure, but he was preaching, and he, you know, and he was saying it's really important that we take courageous moral inventory. And at the time that he said that, I was like, But later on in my life, I realized, oh, that was such wisdom. We need to stand before the Holy One and walk out our salvation every day before Him. And that means taking courageous moral inventory. It means not being afraid to look inside. It doesn't mean, come on, guys, let's just baseline it right here. It means that we need to be honest in our appraisal of what's happening to the best of our ability and stand before the Holy One and take responsibility for our stuff, take responsibility for our attitudes. This whole thing with Esau and Jacob, really, uh, this is centuries old. This isn't just, I mean, we're going through it step by step as if it was just an occurrence, but it's really not. It's really what has been happening in the world from the very beginning. It is the rise of the flesh and the spirit wanting to rule over the flesh, and the flesh fighting the flesh saying, I want to rule, and the spirit saying, that's not your job. Your job is to do your job submitted to the spirit. And I think that is really the battle that we're seeing going on, is that the spirit is saying, yeah, I understand you have wants, you have needs, you have desires. They need to be submitted. And that's what's going on here. And we're kind of seeing it working out in a natural way. But in reality, I mean, come on, Edom is, I want it now. It's, microwave mentality. It's give me what I want as I want. It's throw it on a credit card if I don't have the money. It's give it to me now because I want it. I want it. I want it. That's what it is. And we're all living in a society, in all the societies that's what's functioning. And so this week is kind of like each one of us sitting in the middle of this. There's so much. I mean, guys, we're just taking one you know, we're peeling off one itsy bitsy skinny little layer of this. There's hundreds of layers to be peeled off here. And we're just looking at this one, just walking through it this way. I'm very excited to hear the layers that you're pulling off and what you're getting. Here we go. Gloria says, Jacob says, katon ti. I am small, I am not worthy, I have become diminished in the light of your kindnesses. The sages teach that this prayer and attitude of Jacob should teach us about when we pray to first contemplate the goodness, the kindness, the faithfulness, and the multitude of gifts that God pours on us each day. And that puts us into focus of who we are, ki tonti, and who God is. Gloria, thank you so much. That's absolutely fantastic. Having that perspective, looking at it from the perspective of gratitude. And I think that that's the most life-changing thing. I think that I've seen more miracles happen when people have a heart of gratitude than any other thing, because with a heart of gratitude, you stop looking at what you're going to get out of something. And you just look at, oh God, you are so good. You are so wonderful. You have done so much. Thank you so much, Gloria. I appreciate that so much. You really encapsulated that. And Kathy said, perspective is everything. Erica said, yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Gloria, are you on here right now? I'm looking for you. Hi, Darlene. Hi, Sabrina. Hey, Linda, Dina. Gloria, you're on here right now. Did you want to say something about that? I was waiting for you to unmute your mic. Okay. Well, that's okay. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. And so this layer that we're looking at right now is just a layer of what is happening with Jacob, what is happening with the battle that's going on within him, and what is happening with the battle that's going to be occurring with Esau. He doesn't know what Esau's response is going to be yet. So he goes through this battle and he wrestles. Let's keep going. We're looking through here, verse 25, no longer will be said that your name is Jacob, but now Israel, for you have striven with the divine and with man and have overcome. And Jacob inquired, divulge, if you please, your name. And he said, why then do you inquire of my name? And he blessed him right there. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, Peniel, for I have seen the divine face to face, yet my life was spared. Pene in Hebrew is face, and that word means face to face. Basically, it's face to face. It's nothing in between. It's right here, right now, face to face. The sun rose for him as he passed Penuel, and he was limping on his hip. And therefore, the children of Israel are not allowed to eat the displaced sinew on the hip socket to this day. This is a thing, because he struck Jacob's hip socket on the displaced sinew. So Jacob raised his eyes and saw, behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two handmaids, and he put them and their children first, Leah and her children next, Rachel and Joseph last. Then he himself went on ahead of them and bowed earthward 7 times until he reached his brother. So he put the kids in there. He put everybody into segments. Rachel and Joseph being last, because you remember she hadn't had Benjamin yet. They're last. The handmaidens are first. So here we go with the trauma of putting your children in harm's way, hoping that God will heed and soothe Esau, that the gifts would soothe him. Esau's coming with 400 soldiers. He's still coming with the soldiers. Yikes. We talked about the trauma and the trauma of family and things that go on that way. And I think that this is just really kind of hitting the nail on the head right here, that all of this is creating a trauma in the children too that will have to be dealt with after. And sometimes our actions are not intended to bring trauma to other people, but they do. And that's what I think this week is about, is coming to grips with the fact that sometimes, even in our best intentions, we do cause trauma to other people. And if we will come before the Holy One and we will ask him how it is that we can bring forth reconciliation, how in us, how we can take courageous moral inventory and discover what it is that we could do better next time, how we can reconcile that, how we can approach that family member and speak life to them in such a way that we hear them, that we hear what our issue was, that we, how we hurt them from their perspective, and release shalom, release healing, release wholeness. And it's got to be a God thing. It's got to be in your Israel. It's got to be after you have been in the presence of God and not in your flesh, because your flesh will just create more trauma and more drama. But in that place where we wrestle with the Ish and we say, Father, your divine presence is the only thing that will bring about healing and restoration and freedom and truth. Now, and so I think that's where we're going. Misty, you have
Yes.
anything?
No, I was just looking ahead to see where we are in the story. And
33, chapter 33. So Jacob raises his eyes and behold, Esau's coming, and with him were 400 men. Okay, so the soldiers are still coming. And he divides them all. And then he went ahead. So Jacob divides them all up, but then he goes ahead of all of them to be the buffer, to be the one. And he goes forward. And when he went, he's bowing 7 times. Now, 7, is a number of perfection, the number of completion, the number of rest and worship. And so Jacob falls down 7 times and worships. Was he worshiping Esau? No. Esau didn't know that. He was worshiping the Holy One 7 times. Bam. Get up, walk a couple steps. His legs were probably a little rubbery. Mine would have been. Bam. Again. 7 times until he gets to his brother. And Esau, this is what gets me. This is where you can start. Grab your tissues. Esau ran toward him, embraced him, fell upon his neck, kissed him, and they wept. Esau ran toward him. And you know what hit me this morning was, this is the prodigal son. And Esau's being like the dad. I mean, Jacob's like the prodigal son who's been gone. And now he comes back, and Esau is taking, because Isaac's not there. So Esau is stepping up and running out and grabbing a hold of Jacob. What? Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Unmute yourself, Misty.
it's
So
beautiful.
you're talking, but I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
So Esau runs towards him, embraces him. Wait a minute. He embraced him? And then he fell upon his neck. And we remember that when Jacob was deceiving Isaac, that he put a hairy animal skin on his neck because his neck was soft. And this is where Esau's kissing him on his soft neck. Isn't that interesting? We'll have to think about that. Charlie, did you have something you wanted to share?
Sure. As I'm driving, guys, hello, everyone. I miss you all. I'm just thinking as I'm hearing this, is like, I keep hearing some may trust in horses and some may trust in chariots, but we will trust in the name of our God. He didn't approach, we'll say, the enemy. His brother wasn't his enemy, but he didn't, when we have things coming against us, when we have people attacking us, we're given so many examples of how we're to approach those things. We're to approach him in worship. I mean, look in Second Chronicles when they They assume the battle position, and that was on their knees worshiping. And what happened? It confuses the enemy. It doesn't confuse. I mean, let's look that word up. But what happens is it causes a shaking. It causes a
Yeah.
shaking in the atmosphere,
Yes.
so that no weapon formed against you can prosper. So what are you going through? Are you worshiping? Is that what? Are you falling on your face 7 times as things are coming? No, normally we're running to the text someone 7 times, or we're running to the phone 7 times, or we're crying, being pitiful 7 times, but we're not on our knees blessing the Lord and thanking
Yeah.
him for going ahead of us, thanking him for he knew who he served, he knew who he was. So I mean, it was just sort of a completion of that, and
Yes.
it just reminds me that I mean, we see Jericho. We're going to see Jericho later. We see
Right.
circling something 7 times in the worship of that. Um, and how that is a shaking that happens in the atmosphere. So whoever needs to hear that today, as things are coming against you, as family may be coming against you, especially this season when people don't understand what the heck, what do you mean you don't want a Christmas present? When they don't understand when you are, what you might be not celebrating or what you're doing, you may feel like they're coming against you, but this is a time to worship. This is a time to be on your face and not asking everybody what to do. Instead, being on your face, God, what do you say I do in this situation? And how much you love and honor him and thank him for the opportunity to walk this out before people.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you, Troy. That's precious. Thank you. Yes. And Letitia said we have to repent and humble ourselves and do that courageous inventory before we can hear what others say to us. Because when they tell us how we've hurt them, we have to be prepared, right?
Yes.
And we also have to be willing to go to them first, not waiting on them to confront us. And isn't that so true? And that's the strategy that we see here in this story, that Jacob didn't wait for Esau. Jacob could have gone a different way to get to his dad. If what he was trying to do was get home to Isaac, he could have gone a different way and gone around and not at all had any um, contact with his brother, but he didn't. He chose to go right through. He chose to go right through his brother's land. And so Letitia said, we also have to be willing to go to them first, not waiting on them to confront us and make ourselves vulnerable. It's only possible with Yah. I recently had this happen on Yom Kippur. It was brutal, but amazing all at once. That's so beautiful. Yeah, these are the things that we really need to hear. Thank you so much. And so in this story right now, we're at the point where now they have kissed and made up. They've reconciled. Uh, Israel made teshuvah. He turned. He changed his ways. He gave his brother more than what he could have ever gotten from the birthright or the blessing. He gave that to his brother. He restored the things that were important to Esau. And you notice that the importance of it was with the animals, because his brother was a hunter, right? So I thought that the animals were very significant in that's what he was. But he wasn't bringing, spices and clothing, and he was bringing what he had. He was bringing the wealth that he had, but he was bringing something that would speak specifically to his brother.
Wasn't the whole thing though really speaking to his brother when he's kind of he was a man of the fields, and he was all of
Yeah.
those things, and he's kind of feeding into that. You are great, you are
Yes.
you are,
Yeah.
and just kind of feeding his ego,
Yes.
that
Absolutely.
flesh part of him
Right.
that basically took control a long
Right.
time ago, which is why he gave up his birthright, was because he was
Right.
in the flesh.
Right. And that was he. So when we love people, don't we come to them where they are and speak to them in a language that they understand? Isn't that how the Holy One speaks to us? He comes to us where we
Absolutely.
are, and he speaks to us in a language that we understand.
Absolutely.
And that's what Jacob was doing. He was speaking his brother's language.
Yes.
He was giving him gifts that would touch the heart of his brother. And obviously Esau is overwhelmed by the generosity of Jacob, and that he gave him the that he announced with every drove of more presence, more presence, more presence. Every single time another emissary was standing there saying, your servant, your servant. And Jacob says, my Lord, to you. He's saying, so every gift comes along with the recognition to speak specifically to Esau everything that he needed to hear all that time, all those years, 34 years worth or longer, because they were together for before that, but for their whole lives. Esau was the favored child of Isaac's. Jacob wasn't. And and Esau was used to being the favored child. And when Jacob got the blessing and the birthright, all of a sudden Esau didn't have a leg to stand on. When Jacob left, of course, Esau was still there with his dad. That didn't change. Jacob was the one that had to be in exile, even though he had, quote, gotten the blessing and he had gotten the birthright. He was in exile. So here Jacob comes back and he is presenting to his brother more than he could have ever gained by having the birthright and having the blessing. That's what the sages are saying, that the wealth was so incredible. It was so much more than he could have ever gained on his own. And it was feeding that part of him that needed that particular recognition. And some people might say that was bribery, that it was manipulation. I don't see it at all as being manipulation. I think that it was wisdom. I think that he was really dealing with, come on, guys, we're dealing with Edom here. We're dealing with Esau, the father of the nation of Edom, who ends up being Rome. Okay, so being basically, what we're dealing with. This is going to continue on. But in this moment, he dealt wisely. So in these moments, what I'm asking of you is trying to bring this to a practical application here for this week. How can we deal wisely? First of all, we need to be on our face before the king. And we need to be in his presence and allow the sheen of our Isha, the sheen that is in our Isha. We need to allow the presence, the manifest presence of the Holy One to truly burn away and to cause us to have eyes to see who he is and what he needs us to partner with him on. And that means letting go of our own selfish intentions, our own getting our own way, having things done a way that makes us happy. We have to let those things go and ask the Holy One, what is the best course of action for me to take here and now? And how do I bring reconciliation and peace into my family, piece by piece? We know that it's not always going to be an all or nothing or a one time only. It's going to be a continuation, but this is a great place for us to start, right? So with Jacob and Esau, we saw that Jacob and Esau had this beautiful reconciliation in this moment, right? It was wonderful. Esau kissed him, hugged him, cried, wept with him. But Jacob was being wise. He was being wise because he was operating in the spirit of the Holy One. And what he did was he did not join back together with Esau for the future. He went and he said, no, you go ahead. You go. You don't need to leave anybody with me. You don't need to leave your soldiers with me. You don't need to, we're not going to go with you. We're going to just take our time going. You go ahead and we'll catch up with you. And he was wise in doing that because we don't know how long this reconciliation was going to last.
Didn't you find it interesting the way, though, that he said, the flocks are slow, the children are slow, but, he was probably the one that was slow because he'd just been injured.
Yeah, he was. And I think that he also had some insight in his time with the Holy One that he knew that the reconciliation did not mean that they were going to be best friends, because prophetically it was spoken over them when they were in the womb of their mother, that they would never rule together, that it would always be one or the other, that they would never rule together. And I think that Jacob was using a lot of wisdom. So just allow that to seep into your heart and ask the Holy One with you, with the things that are going on. If you're having any of this happening in your family, what does that look like? How does that get played out? It does not necessarily mean that you move in together. There can be peace, and there can be restoration, and there can be healing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to live in the same space.
That is right.
Kathy Merrick says, our granddaughter is, she's sharing her heart as a grandmother to her. I don't want to expose anything here. Kathy Merrick is sharing with her granddaughter and sharing her heart and humbling herself, so that she can hear with an understanding heart. And I love that, Kathy. So basically what you're saying is that you are humbling yourself before the Holy One and speaking in a gentle way and allowing the Holy One to allow that conversation to move forward. I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. And we pray that that your granddaughter will be able to hear your heart, and that the reconciliation will occur, and blessings and blessings and blessings. And that shalom peace that brings wholeness and completeness would just prevail in that relationship. And piece by piece, step by step. And the biggest thing is that right now you're partnering with the Holy One to bring about the reconciliation, and that's everything. And he will do that. Yeah, that's so good. Okay. A lot of us are not. Petra's saying, I'm not good with conflict. A lot of us are not. And I realize now that so many times I have avoided situations because I'm afraid of the conflict. But what if the conflict turns out to be the way that Esau went to his brother? Yeah, exactly. And that's the risk that we have to take. And I think that that's part of this whole week of what the Holy One's asking of us, this courageous moral inventory of us, is that, are we willing to walk into situations that we don't know the outcome? We don't know how the outcome's going to be, but can we stand in our peace? Can we stand in the presence of God? Can we stand mightily? Can we step out of Jacob and step into Israel and stand there saying, whatever the kingdom needs, I'm willing to do it. I'm not letting go. I'm moving forward. Whatever it is that I need to do, I will do. And it's not in our own strength. And so we can move forward not knowing what the result is going to be. We can, because we're walking in that anointing of walking in that Israel anointing, if you want to look at it that way, because it's definitely not walking in your flesh. But we have to do it from moving forward from being on our face 7 times, which means, the repetition of it all. Darlene, did you have something to say, sis? You're on mute. Oh, nope, we can't hear you. You're unmuted, but we can't.
You have to turn the thing on.
Oh, that helps occasionally, but whatever.
I've learned something new this year.
Okay.
Turn on your microphone.
Turn on your microphone.
Just to encourage any of the ladies that I think I've been trying to be quiet the whole time because I love to learn and listen, but I keep getting pushed to the front. So my daughter and I, who used to be extremely close for many years, have had some growing pains. And as she grows up, and I kept saying, oh, it's probably menopause, I'm throwing that. I didn't want the conflict, Petra. Yes. I did not want the conflict of talking with her. So God insisted that she come talk to me. And last week we had a 3-hour listening, crying, hugging. The reconciliation was so beautiful that, again, God has taught me to be still, to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to agree with everything? No.
No.
Just listen. And
Right.
when that other person, in this case it was my daughter, when they hear us, they hear our heart, because we're not saying anything with our mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And then speaking her language. And before she got here, because she called the meeting, I think it was last Friday, so I don't think I was on, or the Friday before, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Before she got here, I went on my face and I was like, God, it's on you. You've done a reconciliation with she and I before.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say the right words, and please shut my mouth if I'm going to say anything. I want my tone to be pleasant,
Mm-hmm.
because when Darlene goes in volume, some people think I'm mad. I'm not necessarily mad. I just have a big mouth. You have to talk to God. I just have a loud mouth. But people's perception, I've learned in all of these many years, they think I'm yelling at them. So I've had to squelch that, bring it down to nice voice, my inside voice, my calm voice for them. And it's, I'll be honest with you, sometimes it's difficult for me to do that. It really
Sure.
is. But
Sure.
for them, it's not about me. It's for them and what pleases him. So
Yeah.
when she left, my whole point in this encouraging story to anyone who needs it, I felt like Jacob. Every time you ladies were talking about Jacob, I'm like, oh, I did a Jacob in the last couple of weeks. Again, was my daughter and I haven't hugged. Brenda, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Okay. Don't cry. Don't cry while you're crying. Grab some tissue.
Okay. So, my boys and I hug, but my daughter and I stopped hugging years ago. I have no idea why.
Oh.
But the hug she gave me was worth the wait.
Oh my goodness.
Worth the wait. So
Oh.
God knows when it's the right time. Things were said honestly between the two of us, very honestly. I always let her go first. And then, I told her, I said, you're so eloquent. You're so great at communication. You're so good at verbalizing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so proud of you. And I'm not patting myself on the back. It's what God told me to say, and it flowed. And she again let down her guard. And it was, she's called me more this week than she's called me in several months.
Oh my gosh.
So please take heart.
Oh,
It will
yes.
be done. See, the other thing I have real quick is when I took care of mom and dad when mom was dying, dad and I were oil and vinegar our whole life. I mean, we didn't have a whole bunch of good memories. I was always trying to please him. Well, when I'm taking care of them, I was like, God, dad's going to get on my last nerve and I'm taking care of mom. So I need to do it unto you. Unto you, God. Every day I would say that like 19 times. Unto you, God, unto you. And finally I said, show me God show me dad through your eyes, God, because through my eyes, it's not looking pretty over here. And every time he opens his mouth, I want to just slap him, because he doesn't know that when he tells mom who's dying of cancer, Lorraine, eat more. Lorraine, your hair is straight. Lorraine, your hair is not fluffy. And I want to just slap the crap out of him. I'll be honest with you. And I was like, I know that's not what you want, God. I know that's not what you want, but help me. And when he showed me my dad and the things he went through as a little boy, the alcoholism, this, we all have dysfunctional families. We know that.
Yeah.
And that I was beside myself. So my mother noticed it and she goes, wow, you sure love your dad way more than you used to. How did that happen? I said, God, nothing but Jesus. And so that helped me minister to both of them.
Yeah.
When my mother died, I know God put these words in my dad's mouth, because my dad never in 80 some odd years of his life spoke to me like this.
Wow.
I still have it in my heart. He said to me, with my mother laying there, his hand on her chest, he said, Sissy, I'm not Darlene to them, Sissy, I want to tell you that no words and no money could ever thank you enough for what you did for your mom and I.
Oh.
I sucked it up. I didn't cry in front of him. I was like, let me go in the other room. And he was like, and I thought, thank you, God. that was, you know, yes, as a little girl, I always wanted his approval. And just about the time I didn't need his approval, then he gives it to me. So take heart. Reconciliation is for each and every one
Yeah.
who's on here, who's listening. I know
Yeah.
you're going to get it
Yeah.
because he's given it to me and he's no respecter of person. So thank you for letting me
Oh,
share, because somebody, I believe, needs that,
yes.
if not now, on the replay. So
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much, Darlene. I love that story. I just love that so much. You know, one of the things I wanted to share was that in all of this, and what we're learning in all of this, is that we are the light. You know, the Holy One wants us to be light in our families, and Israel was light in the family in that moment. He was light. And the response was, you can't even not respond well to light, because it's love. It is acceptance. It's not trying to get your own. Light doesn't take, it only gives. Light only gives. It doesn't take. And so in those moments, that's what was happening, and the light was being shed in the kingdom. You know, you can hear the music playing, because now the kingdom's going right, and these children are going to be the tribes of my people that are going to scatter throughout all the earth and bring my word and my blessing to every family of the earth. That's what was occurring here. And what was at risk was the death to all of that. And yet the Holy One, it was never his intention for that to die. That was not his intention. That was not what he was going to allow to have happen. But Jacob didn't know. He was walking into the situation not really knowing, but he had to trust. And that's what we have to do, is we just have to trust. God's got a plan of reconciliation, because redemption is really what he's after with everyone. So being a light, and also one of the things of learning in all of this for me, and Misty, you can jump in here. The thing that I'm learning is, it's your attitude, it's your heart, it's your facial expressions, it's your tone, it's the words you use in your text message. It's all of that. All of those things can be used for good or not so good. And when during this season, we're in Kislev right now, but during this season, it's really important that we pay attention to how we are portraying ourselves to others. And that's, I mean, I don't know how to put it any other way, except that we need to be taking a lot of inventory right now. You know, how, you know, are we tossing our hair? Are we looking a little stern? Are we using harsher words? These are things that are important. And if we're light, that's not how we're supposed to be. So we have to backstep and get down on our knees 7 times. We need to bow. We need to be in his presence. We need to get right with him before approaching anybody else. So if you're in the midst of a conflict, I would just say, you know, start over. Start at the point of bowing before him and getting his perspective on what is to occur, and truly opening up your heart and saying, Father, where do I need to be changed? Where do I need to, you know, what needs to be changed in me, so that I can be light and I can be an emissary and I can go forward and do these things with being a vessel of the kingdom. Wow. So stay calm. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh my gosh, we have so much. And you know what? We're not going to be able to get to it. But I know that right now, we're all on the same page of what's going on. But Misty, are you here still? I'm looking for you. Misty, are you here? No, she's not. Okay. Misty was going to be talking about Dina. And I really want her to share this. So when she gets back, I will let her share this. But let me read some comments from some other people. And yes, Letitia, thank you so much for sharing book. You're sharing a book called The Peacemaker by Ken Sande. And you said that it's amazing with teaching about dealing with conflict biblically. We are biblical peacemakers and peace fakers. Oh, I like that. Peace faker. Ouch. That hurt. That stuck where, ouch. That's all I'm going to say. Avoiding or breaking peace. Yeah. And anyway, so she's recommending that book. I like that. Kathy is saying Facebook's a good reminder of how we've traveled. We were right there where our families have been, and our loving Father worked on our hearts, and we can do that for them. What he did for us, loving them where they're at. Yes, that is so good. Yeah, I love this ability for us to be able to get together through technology. I was able to be with my family for at Thanksgiving time, all of my mother, my siblings, and all of our children. We only had one missing, which was one of my sons, but everyone else was able to be there, and it was just amazing. I'm so thankful for the technology that we're being able to do this. Misty, do you want to share? Are you filling up to it, sis?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
For those, I'm just going to tell for
Yeah.
you guys, I was sick at work and came home early today. And so I apologize for having to leave for a minute. I hope that didn't mess anything up.
It didn't. You're good, sis. You just take a breath, and and just share with us whatever you're feeling that you want to share about the story of Dina. And we're running late, so you just share and don't worry about it. And okay.
All right.
Go.
All right. So, the story of Dina, I actually watched someone who said that she was not raped in the story. And I was taken back by that. And I was like, I don't get it. And his justification was, where it says that he loved her, but it doesn't say that until after it says he's taken her and taken advantage of her and humbled her and done these things.
Yeah.
So, but what happens in this story is for her redemption seems so drastic. But remember that the Bible is cyclical.
Yes.
So what's happened before will happen again.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is Jacob has fought for the blessing all of this time. Well, when you look at Simeon and Levi and Dinah, who was their mother? It was Leah.
Yeah.
So Leah is the unloved wife, the unloved sister of this group. And Dinah is taken advantage of, and Jacob keeps his peace. He's silent until the sons come back. And then when they hear of it, they're incensed and they're like, well, we have to do something. So I did go back and look at, I say go back, it's actually in Deuteronomy, but the price that someone had to pay when a man would have to pay if he took advantage of a woman was he had to pay 50 shekels basically as the bride price for her. And so when they came, when what is his name? When Shechem came and he said, well, what do I have to do? I want to marry, and I want you guys basically, let's just intermingle. It'll all be good, especially since I love your sister and I just really want her in my life. Mm-hmm. And so the brothers were like, no, you defiled her. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to say that you need to be circumcised. That's the only way this is going to work. It's the only way we can be together and intermingle with you is for that to happen. So what do? They wait until the third day, which is the most painful day, the hardest day in this recovery when you're an adult man going through this process. Because, most of the time it's done, right? Most of the time it's done on an 8-day-old child.
Right.
So an adult having to deal with this the third day. So what do? They're like, okay, now's the time. And they go in and they basically just kill them all. And then they rescue their sister. But I thought it was so interesting because they are also, as the children of the unloved wife,
right,
they're also fighting for that blessing.
Yeah.
They are wanting that blessing of their father. And in this story, I think it's almost blaring that he's it's just not going to come that way. It's just not going to come that way. And but Dina had her redemption through their actions, even horrible as it was. I
Mhm.
mean, that was a very dramatic and drastic measure, but she was worth it for them.
Mhm.
She was worth it for
Wow.
them.
What an interesting perspective, Misty. Thank you for sharing that. Ooh, yeah, that's good. I'm not, you when you said that somebody was trying to tell you that this wasn't an instance of rape, all I can say is that she was a little girl and they didn't have permission. He didn't have permission to,
Right.
he stole something from her that was not his to take.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the devastation of the fact that she was shattered, she was broken.
Yes.
Something was stolen from her. She was meant for something different. And because this person, and whether it was real love or it was just lust or infatuation, it doesn't matter. The fact was that he took something that was not his, and he didn't operate within protocol.
That's
And
exactly right.
everything in the ancient Near East was protocol. Everything.
Yes.
And the whole thing of them uh, wanting to join with Jacob's family, of course they did. Of
Yeah.
course they wanted to join
Look
with
at the
that. They
wealth.
wanted
Look
the
at the,
wealth. Yeah, they
yeah.
wanted the promise.
Mhm.
I'm sure that they'd heard some things.
I'm
They wanted
sure.
all of that. And that's what they talked about, with all of the heads of their people. Hey, let's just do what they want us to do, because look what we're going to get. Look what we're going to gain from all of this.
Right.
Not even considering the fact that that little girl was fractured
Right.
and dealing with that trauma. That was not
Yes.
even a consideration.
Mm-mm.
But um,
And it was more also, when I think the word there says that he had defiled her.
mhm,
And it was more than just the act itself. It was also the fact that he was an uncircumcised man who was
right,
not a part of their group.
exactly. That he was not the one for her at that
Right.
state of his life. Who knows what? I mean, all we know is that at that particular time, that was a no-no.
Right.
That was a
Shouldn't
no-no.
have happened.
It should not have happened. So thank you very much for bringing that, to us. And guys, when we're reading the scriptures, like right now, this time, we're just kind of going over it in a piecemeal of, like I said, a skinny little layer. We're just talking about the basics of the story. There's so much more here, though. You can look up the name Shechem. You can look up what that means. You can look at who were these people? What did they do? Where have you seen this before? I love that part about the Torah. Like Misty said, you're going to see this is a cycle. You're going to see these things happening over and over. Like we're watching Jacob and Esau, and I'm thinking the prodigal son, but we're also thinking what happened with Jacob and Esau back when there was when the breach happened between the two of them. The Torah is always going to take us back into cycles. And the other thing is that we can look at the words and look at the numbers and look at the letters. um, you know it's crazy. This is why it's going to take all eternity and we're still not going to get it. This is why nobody can say that they know everything, because they absolutely cannot know anything, because we can just study something from this perspective, and you bring in 25 different people who are studying it, and they're going to have 25 different perspective of what's happening, and layers and revelations. And that's the beauty of his word. And we're just talking the story. You can take apart the words individually, you can take apart the letters individually and get new stories within that, and the beauty of that and the numbers of it all and what he's saying. It's so deep, it's so beautiful, it's so rich. And
Yes.
I apologize that we didn't get through all of this, we got through the story of Dina. We didn't get through the story of the people that died during this Torah portion. There were 3 deaths in this Torah portion. We didn't even get a chance to talk about that, but you finish studying this out over the weekend, and you will have an opportunity to get some insight into that, which is really interesting. Why did the Holy One break into the middle of this whole Torah story and tell us that Deborah died? Why did he do that? It's very interesting. Charlie has talked several times about what her name means. Her name is from the name Deborah. Her name Melissa is from, and Melissa, you know this, the name is from Deborah. And the Dalet, the Bet, the Resh, the Dalet being the portal, the doorway, the portal, the Bet being the kingdom, the household, that place, that kingdom, and the Resh being the king off of his throne or the head of the household. And so we're seeing in this, and then the hey at the very end is that place of revelation. So we're seeing in the midst of this name that gets thrown out to us, just like, oh, and by the way, Deborah died. She was the nursemaid to Jacob and Esau. And here she is with now, here she is with Jacob bringing his family back, and she's with them. What does that mean? All kinds of things, all kinds of great things. But the name itself, how about this? That in the midst of that name, it is the doorway. It is the moving into a realm of kingdomship. And the revelation of that kingdomship is being brought forth in and out of that, of her name. And so Melissa, your name is that. It's the revelation of the Holy One in his kingdomship, and the inspiration and revelation that is being brought forward and brought over the head of the home, the head of the one that's maybe off the throne for the moment, but in that place of leadership. And that revelation that goes back and forth. And that's why Deborah is the name of a prophetess, because that's what's happening. The wisdom of the Holy One is coming back and forth and moving into. And I just thought, wow, how interesting that he would just pop that right in the middle. Nothing is done without a reason, ever. So I just love that. So Melissa, can you unmute real quick? Do you have something to share with us? Any thoughts you want to share with us before we get going here? There you are.
Oh, okay. Did that work?
Yes,
Okay.
it did. Hello.
Hi. No, I don't have anything to add right now. I'm just soaking up everything right now and just sitting quietly because I don't do that very often.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's interesting that your name was being put in there. I thought that was really interesting. There's something that the Holy One is releasing right now in all of the Devorahs, all of the
Yes.
prophetesses, all of those who are being filled with wisdom and inspiration, coming and going and moving into the families and bringing forth that revelation into the families, but also being a doorway and a portal to bring the families, if you think about it, to bring the families into the light of Yeshua Messiah. That's also part of what's happening. And so whatever that is for you, sis, blessings.
Thank you.
Good. All right. So ladies, I know that I've kept you a little bit long today. Wow. This portion has just been incredible, and we didn't even get to finish, but we will finish this week, right? Because we're going to finish reading it up tonight and study on it and think about it for tomorrow. And then we will be moving into the next portion. All of these portions are so connected. And they're all dealing with family, and they're all dealing with the issues that God is trying to stir up within us. And we are challenged right now to be bringing our A game, and being humbled before him right now. This isn't a time for us to be walking around with a lot of pride and saying we know all this stuff. This is a time for us to really be walking in humility and just being remembered of the 7 times that Israel bowed before the Holy One and worshiped him before confronting the situation. And if we will just take that on, he was our example of that. Here, but remember that Messiah was the example of that throughout his entire life. He was always saying, not my will, not my will, not my will. He could have said my will. He could have said, I'm going to call the angels. I'm kind of hungry. He didn't give in to the Esau thing. He didn't do that. He showed us how not to do that. He was hungry, but he didn't give in to that hunger, right? When Hasatan, when the adversary, when the resistor said to him, well, hey, you can make this bread. I'll give you bread. I'll take you here. I'll put you up here on these. Yeah, he didn't do that. He showed us that's not the way. And he always, always, always said, not my will, but yours be done, Father. Always, always, always. It wasn't about elevating himself, even though he was Messiah. Even though Messiah is in you and the Spirit of the living God dwells within you, it's not about you being elevated. It's about you walking humbly before your God. And it's about him bringing reconciliation to the generations. And that takes our participation. And that's pretty awesome, guys. It's pretty awesome. Big shoes to fill. And the only way that we can do it is when we are humbled before him and we are on our face before him. And we have those cyclical occurrences of having face-to-face contact with him, which is what we see in this Parsha. How many times is the word face brought into this Parsha? And that is face to face with him, forehead to forehead, nose to nose, chin to chin, chest to chest, knee to knee, toe to toe. There's nothing in between. And his word said there that I am your God, and there you will have no other gods before me. In other words, nothing that separates that connection of face to face, nothing that comes between and puts a barrier between the face to face. And if we will purpose in our hearts this week in this Parsha to return to that and to be on our face before him and be humble before him and say, Father, we don't want anything going on in me, any of my Edom, any of my desire to have my flesh fulfilled, anything in me that's saying, I demand to have my rights heard, any of that, set that aside and be before God and say, what do you want? And how do I walk in kingdom right now? Because all of that other stuff, that's Edom. All of that other stuff. So let's just see what he has for us today. And that's our challenge. And isn't it beautiful that he challenges us in his Parshas? And we don't ever walk out the same. We cannot read through these Parshas, ladies. We can't do it. We cannot read through these Parshas and allow this word to become life to us and devour it and eat it and feast upon it. He says to devour the scrolls. That's what we're doing. We're devouring them. We might only be able to get one tiny little thing, one tiny little piece, one little crumb, one little morsel. It is enough because his word is the bread of life. And this is enough. So don't ever think that because you don't have all of this information from the sages, and you don't have all this information about the Hebrew, and you don't have all this information, and maybe this is the first time you've ever read this ever or heard this story. It is enough, because you standing before the Holy One, your God, and saying, I want to eat your scroll. I want this word. I want your word. I want the word of life to train me and teach me. I want Messiah to be my bread of life. That is enough. And he will take you and train you and teach you, and you're not behind, and you're not less than, and you're not as good as anyone else. You are. So I just want to bless you with that. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you. Everybody on Facebook, thank you so much for streaming with us. We bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Enjoy the rest tonight, Shabbat, sundown. Woo, enjoy. Those of you who are listening by podcast, thank you so much for being with us. I hope that you enjoyed this. Blessings to all of you. And we will see you next week again. And those of you that are on Zoom, stay on. We're going to have an after party. Anybody on Facebook, come on, jump onto Zoom. We're still here. We'll talk with you later. Blessings, everyone. And